Hey there, I'm Dejan Isak and this is the Agency Engine Room, where we cut through the noise of thousands of tools to reveal the systems that actually deliver client results. The agencies that scale aren't just using more tools. They're strategically integrating the right tools to create operational engines that consistently deliver without burning out their teams. Find show notes and resources at agencyengineroom.com or /agencyengineroom on LinkedIn. Today, we're opening the engine room with Freia Muehlenbein, owner of Be Reyt Agency Advisory. She scaled a digital department from 0 to 100 people in 7 years with no prior management experience, while maintaining healthy margins and happy teams. Freya, welcome to the Agency Engine Room. Tell our listeners a bit about yourself and what's keeping you busy these days.
Hi, well, thank you for having me. Well done on the pronunciation of my surname. That's very advanced German from your side. So yeah, I'm an agency growth and operations advisor. I'm based in the UK, and most of my clients come to me when they feel a little bit stuck. So either stuck with performance, profitability, team issues, new business, or something stuck and they don't know how to get out of it. So I come in as the kind of objective view of things. And because I've got my eyes and ears kind of in the agency world and best practice, I go in and I audit agencies' ways of working essentially and present them with, proposals of how to change things to get back into growth, get back into profitability, happy teams, happy clients. So what's keeping me busy? My clients, I guess, are keeping me busy. So the majority of my work is kind of retainer and project mix. So I work with a lot of agency senior leaders on an ongoing basis, helping them to work through operational changes, improving growth, accountability, change management. And then I have these larger projects where I go in and I audit everything from start to finish. So it's a great mix of identifying what's wrong and helping with delivery on an ongoing basis.
Let's dig a little bit into your experience with the whole agency transformation process. You spent years delivering strategy with boards and senior leadership teams, making practical operational changes across entire agencies. Can you tell us what's the biggest gap you see between a boardroom strategy and day-to-day operations?
So I think what happens in the boardroom is often that your board of directors decides that the agency has to go in a certain direction. So we want to grow, we want to scale, we want to achieve certain performance metrics, KPIs. And then they communicate that to the agency and there's an expectation that things just magically happen. And of course, that's not true because people are delivering client work and they deliver business as usual. So I have seen time and time again that an agency founder or a CEO will get frustrated because they've communicated multiple times that we have to increase client growth by 10%, or we need to increase profits by 20%, or we need to do X, Y, and Z, and it's just not happening. And that's just simply because the whole change process wasn't followed at all. It's just an assumption in the boardroom that if we communicate it and if we make it a KPI, it will just happen. And that's just not how things work. So really in terms of best practice, agencies often miss the first step of making changes, which is defining what the change is. So for example, if your goal is to increase revenue by 20% in the next financial year, and that is your KPI that you measure in the boardroom, then you need to really break that down into, well, why are we not achieving this 20% growth right now? So what's holding us back? So it could be that we're not converting enough pitches, or we're not growing our existing clients, or we're not holding on to clients, or we're not profitable enough in our delivery. And then breaking that down into, well, why is that? So really defining what is keeping you from achieving the goal that you're setting in the boardroom and involving the right people in that. So if revenue isn't where it needs to be, we need to speak to the people and involve them from day one in this project. So client services teams, what's keeping us from growing clients? Sales teams, what's keeping us from converting pitches? So it's that first stage of making a change is to identify, how are we going to do this? What is the change that we need? Why do we need it? I think agencies often jump into, here's what we want. We'll tell that to the teams and then we'll just hope for the best. And if it doesn't happen, we will ask the teams, why hasn't it happened? And the answer is usually, well, because you've given me a target that I don't understand, I can't deliver, and I'm too busy to deliver it.
Yeah, this reminds me of a previous episode where I was talking to an automation specialist, and it's like, agencies want to automate, but they don't know what to automate. Like, how do you know where you can achieve a better process if you don't actually know where you can save time, right? So it doesn't make sense just to automate something. You need to know exactly what can be automated and where can you save actually time.
Yes, I love that. I mean, that's a classic. We need to be quicker. We need to deliver better and more automated. And the sentence that I hear a lot at the moment is we need to do more AI. So, but it's kind of, you're throwing those things into the teams and you're hoping that the teams will just magically understand what all of that means. And I think if we centralize these initiatives a bit more, they can achieve a lot more. So for example, with AI and automation, there are plenty of like agency AI experts out there who will come into an agency and work with the senior leadership team to, well, first of all, make everyone aware of what the potential is for AI and automation. They will help you look in the right areas to audit where you can be better. And then your senior leadership team can actually go away and look specifically for things that can be fixed or made better with AI or automated with AI. But quite often, we just say to the whole agency, we need to jump on AI, we need to get on the AI game, and then no one knows where to start or what's even possible. So I think the first step for me always with any change is to open people's eyes to why is it needed, what's the potential, what's the business case for it, and then people have a much better idea of what they're looking for, no matter what it is, whether it's financial KPIs, whether it's we need to get into AI or we need to be better at client services or whatever the goal is, we need to make people aware and fully get them on board with the thing first before we expect them to do something about it.
Going back to the senior leadership, I'm wondering what exactly is the struggle of the lower level agency people communicating with them, and why do they not see why they're actually struggling right now? So where's the disconnect happening?
I think quite often what happens is that if you have KPIs within delivery or within operations, quite often on paper, the numbers are saying that everything's fine in the teams. So, on paper, we have enough capacity. On paper, we have the right roles. On paper, people have enough time to do their client work. But that's not often reflecting how people are really feeling. It's not reflecting the complexities of working with clients, of the servicing, of all sorts of, challenges that delivery people have to deal with every day. So I think that's the first disconnect, is that senior leaders often look at the numbers and think, yeah, but why is everyone complaining when on paper everything should be fine? No, we don't need to recruit because on paper we have the right headcount. But the delivery teams are screaming for more capacity. So I think there's just a bit of a disconnect in terms of numbers versus what's actually happening. And then I think a lot of delivery people in agencies have had too many bad experiences with how change has been done in the agency. So it's like an us against them mentality of, oh, here we go again. Here's the board of directors coming with another change that I'm supposed to squeeze into my busy day when I don't have time for the stuff that the senior leaders want to make happen. I'm busy delivering work. It is just a bit of a disconnect between the board of directors are very much focused on growth and vision and how can we make better profits and keep clients happy and keep teams happy. But very often they don't speak to the teams enough to understand, well, how do we make all of this happen? It's very top down. And when things become top down, people get frustrated and they just get a bit fed up. So I think we need to involve everyone much more from day one. So if there's a change that's affecting someone in a development role or design role, we need to bring those people into planning for the change. We can't just tell them to do X, Y, and Z. We need to talk to them from day one and say, we're thinking there's potential here within your department. X, Y, Z numbers are saying that this is the situation. Tell us what you think. How can we make this work? And you define the change with the people affected by the change rather than just making it top down.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about this in detail, because you've written about moving the strategy out of the boardroom and into the agency. Walk us through how you transform Monday morning meetings into something that actually changes daily operations.
Yeah, so I'll give you a bit of background because when I was agency side, so I grew my own department to 100 people when it was at its biggest. But then after that role, I moved into essentially looking after the strategic initiatives and change initiatives of the whole agency. So not just my department, but the whole agency. And what I would say is there's quite an interesting statistic out there that 20% of agencies have a clear vision. So that's 80% don't have a clear vision. And only 20% have a written plan for actually delivering their strategic objectives. So again, that leaves the majority of agencies without a proper plan. This lack of planning is quite a big problem in agencies, because everyone wants to grow, everyone wants to become better, but the majority of people don't have a plan. So to make the strategic process more rewarding and actually successful, I think you need to be really clear that planning is needed, and someone somewhere in the senior leadership team needs to drive and own strategic initiatives. So in my old agency, that was me. So I was kind of in the middle, coordinating and communicating between all the different departments, so from client services to all the different digital channels, to finance, to HR, project management, everything. So I was in the middle, making sure that what we set out in our strategic vision was translated into something that was relevant for client services, relevant to people, relevant to delivery teams. So breaking everything down and filtering everything into the team so that every strategic change that on paper could be quite hard to bring to life is created into something living for each department. So for example, again, same example as earlier, if we need to increase revenue by 20%, we need to be clear on why is that? Can't we just actually carry on with the revenue level that we have? So the founder or the CEO, whoever is in charge of creating a culture of strategic thinking, needs to be really clear on, why is this needed in the first place? Because people don't just want growth, they want growth for a purpose. So for example, in my old agency, we were very united in a vision for growth that was exciting. It wasn't scary, it was exciting. It created progression opportunities. It made our company more interesting. It was a positive message from the founder constantly. We believed in what the founder was saying. But in a lot of agencies, the why and the why are you doing things in the first place is already not credible. So we need to start there and then break that down into, okay, well, if it's revenue that we need to aim for, how can you in a design role in delivery impact on that? Otherwise, it's not going to be interesting for you. So you can impact by finding upsell opportunities for design clients, by doing your timesheet correctly so we can see if we're profitable or not, by maybe joining a focus group for efficiencies or AI or automation. So there's tons of things that you could do to break down a meaningless strategic objective into something that means something for everyone. But then most importantly, put someone in charge centrally to see it through, because it will fizzle out. It will not happen unless you make it a priority and someone is running around working with people to deliver those initiatives. And that was my role. I had to make sure that we're not all excited after a strategy day out and then we go back to our jobs and nothing happens. And that's usually what does happen is we have these great creative and strategic ideas and then the day-to-day kicks in and nothing happens. Well, someone needs to own it and drive it. And we need to have reporting mechanisms and get people excited to be part of it. And I know that sounds really like textbook, but it's true. We need to actually make this a priority because it will not happen otherwise.
Yeah, and who do you think should always own it? Is there a rule of thumb where you see this works really well if someone specific from the leadership team owns it?
Each change or initiative needs to be owned by the person who can deliver it best. And that's not always someone in the board of directors, for example. AI, for example, could sit with someone who just is really passionate about it and wants to drive it. So I think sometimes you have to form teams of people who are just really into the topic. And then there's the obvious choices of, if you have an ops director, the ops director needs to own most KPIs or most changes to do with performance, with profitability, with, those types of things. Client services needs to own client KPIs from retention, attrition, growth, and so on. So I think that's all really obvious. Where things should sit is usually really obvious. But even then, those people don't always have the headspace and the focus to deliver those things. And quite often we leave them with lots of barriers. So if we say our 3-year strategy is X, Y, and Z, ops director, client services director, finance director, you all go and deliver those things, please. They will still have lots of barriers in place to not be able to do that. So their capacity is still the same. They still have the same tasks as before. They have a certain headspace and energy level for their day-to-day that now you're asking them to do lots of other stuff on top of it. So I think in agencies, we need to face that reality of our senior leaders are busy and we need to make them into strategic people rather than just people who deliver the day-to-day within their department. The senior people who are responsible for delivering change need to become more strategic people. They need time allocated by the agency to work on the company strategy and not just look after day-to-day clients and day-to-day people problems. They need to be very much focused on what is our growth plan. And then they need time and training to think in those terms and deliver strategic projects.
Let's move to the user impact section just to see how your processes change the lives of different people. So this can be middle managers, it can be the founders. Can you just tell us, for example, what is the new life of a middle manager once you establish these new processes? What kind of changes do they see?
The main change, ideally, will be that your client time, so when previously you've worked a lot of client time, is reducing. So you're expected to work more on strategy, on people development, mentoring, efficiencies, making your ways of working better. So if you, let's say you're like a middle manager within a delivery team, if you're stepping up to being a senior manager, your agency ideally gives you an allowance of like non-client time and some clear objectives of what they expect you to do within your department. So again, if you're like a head of digital marketing, if you get promoted, you should have a clear plan in front of you to say, okay, well, our KPIs within marketing are, our utilization isn't necessarily where it needs to be. We're over-servicing on a lot of clients. I know that my team is very frustrated with our project management system. So those are my change initiatives, and I have to work on them now because now I'm a senior manager. I have to think strategically about making the agency better, and I have to think less about client delivery and firefighting and hand-holding in campaigns and, all of the stuff that you do when you're still in the weeds. So that's the bigger change for you personally. And then from the agency perspective, if you're promoting people into senior roles, think about, are you promoting the right person? As in, are you promoting someone who is really good at the job, so digital marketing, or are you promoting someone who has great potential for leadership, innovation, efficiencies, people, empathy, curiosity? And those to me are attributes of someone who should get promoted into a senior leadership role, not just because you're really good at digital marketing, because then you should be in digital marketing, not in a senior leadership role. So I think those two things are important, and also supporting them. So in my old agency, we developed our own management development program for people who had potential for senior leadership roles. And they would join that program well before they became managers. So they were still working on clients, and we would invest in them to train them on things like coaching, mentoring, line management, HR, leadership, crisis management, all of that stuff, so that when they became managers, they were actually ready. We're not promoting them when they're not ready yet. So lots of changes happen when you move into senior leadership. And I think it is broadly about, you are now a lot more strategic. We're expecting more strategic work and innovation work from you. You need to move from firefighting and one-to-one work into mentoring and coaching and training your teams. And we will help you by providing you this kind of management training that you need to become a good senior leader.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that you actually prepared them for the journey where they're going to end up eventually, but not just throw them into it. It's like, today you're a manager, good luck figuring it out, because it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help the agency. It doesn't help the person. They're going to be completely overwhelmed by the new tasks.
Yeah, exactly. And don't get me wrong, like we introduced the management development program because we did it wrong a couple of times. So I had to. So yeah, you have to imagine like unprecedented growth in my old agency. I've never seen anything like it after that. We had like a year or two where every single month I would probably recruit at least 2, 3, 4, 5 people in the space of 2 years. And I was constantly interviewing, running interview tasks, running assessment days. Like, it was absolute madness. And in that time, we had to promote internally a lot to make people step up and like look after these new people, essentially. And we had to do it so quickly that sometimes there wasn't any time to train them properly. And obviously that comes back to bite you. Either these managers are completely drowning and their confidence, gets knocked because they didn't have the training, or actually the lack of training and confidence impacts on 7 people that they are managing, and then performance and happiness declines. So yeah, we definitely did it wrong a few times until we said, okay, we need to slow down, and we need to like proactively make good managers for the future rather than like rushing into those decisions.
Let's run a quick diagnostic on strategically delivering the breakdowns. When the board has like really ambitious operational goals, but they don't see a very good execution in the end, what's the missing link between the strategy and the implementation?
Yeah, it's probably some of the things that we've already mentioned, where the board is communicating from the top down what the expectation is. So here are the strategic goals, and they might do like a really excited offsite day in a fancy venue to communicate the strategy, and it's new to everyone. So quite often these strategic goals get communicated to the whole company, and that's the first time everyone will hear about the strategy. And in my opinion, it falls down because of that, because people need to be involved much earlier. So I think where it often falls down is that we don't involve the right people in deciding what the strategy should be. So I totally get it. Like the board of directors, senior leadership team should be the ones deciding like the future vision. But we need to bring in the people that are most affected by the goals and the changes that we're proposing. And we need to make sure that they have a say in, well, how realistic is it to make this happen? Before we communicate all of this stuff to the whole company, please can we bring in some of these people to say if this is doable and how are we going to do it? So if you have people on board, like, people working with clients, people working in the different delivery services, project managers, like if those are your change supporters that you already have on board before the plan gets communicated, the company listens much, differently. They will listen to colleagues rather than the leadership team. So I think if we can do one thing better with how we communicate the strategy and then actually deliver it, is bring the right people on board from the beginning and make them part of that change initiative.
Listening to this, I'm always wondering, is there a problem with the vision the board directors sometimes have? Because you mentioned, okay, we just need to increase profit, but where does this idea come from that they need to increase profit? Is this like their go-to because increasing profit just solves everything?
Yeah, it's a problem. I agree. I think profit and saying that we want to scale, those are really 2 goals that are a bit meaningless to the wider company unless they are exciting. Scaling and increasing headcount is a bit of that to me is weird anyway, because increasing headcount doesn't mean anything. It's more about like why do we want to be bigger? And also it's not about the size of the company. It is about the profitability at the end of the day. If you have lots of people but you're not making money, then that's pointless. I think if profitability is your goal, you need to be able to say why that is. So a good founder or a good CEO of a company has an ability to wrap these really boring, meaningless KPIs into a story for growth or for like a vision. So, for example, the founder in the agency that I was with for more than a decade was the absolute best I've ever worked with. And he had a very, very clear vision for why growth and innovation and the different change initiatives that we set out were the right ones. And we were all bought into that. And it was a repeated message of, we want to be the best at a certain thing that no one else in the industry is offering. And if we can do that really well, it will impact positively on everyone in terms of the exciting projects we can work on, the types of software and tools we can bring in, the types of roles we can recruit, how we can progress people internally, how we can reinvest into the company. It was all wrapped in like a really lovely, purpose-driven vision that everyone was bought into. But in a lot of agencies, like you say, they will communicate profit as the key goal to achieve, but they're not explaining why. Why do we need to make more profit? Why is that important? How will we reinvest? What's the plan? Where's all of this money going? Because it's not going in my paycheck. So where is it going? What are we doing with it? And why would I be excited about that? So I think there's a lot for board of directors, CEOs, and founders to learn about vision and culture and creating this narrative that everyone can buy into. Because people sit in these sessions with their arms crossed, like there's no emotions in their face. They just take on information about some kind of strategic goal. They don't understand what's in it for them. So it's a pretty like simple change to just translate every goal and every objective into something that's meaningful for the teams. But I would say on the whole, agency leaders aren't very good at that.
Yeah, and that says a lot. It's actually not great because how should the company grow if the leaders are not in the right position to make it grow, right?
Yeah.
Let's switch to the integration insight section. I want to talk a little bit about operational changes you implement, but specifically across different teams. So sales, marketing, operations. How do you prevent the board level changes becoming silos? So let's say you're implementing a specific project management tool, but it doesn't really work well across teams. What happens? Would you split it up and implement different tools in different teams?
Yeah, this is interesting. So I think it comes back to the topic we talked about earlier about where do certain changes sit. So software, for example, and tools should never sit in one department in isolation ever, especially not project management or agency management software. That needs to sit right, like somewhere central, integrated. Otherwise, like you said, it will work for one department and it won't work for anyone else. So avoiding the silos really comes back to the point of who's bringing the silos together. So who sits in the middle and holds all of the change plan in one place to make sure someone's constantly thinking about, okay, so we know that our data in the agency isn't very good. So we will need some kind of better software or data integration across the agency. And someone central needs to think about, okay, what does that mean for software in new business, so like a CRM? What does that mean for delivery teams, so project management, time tracking, invoicing? What does it mean for client services? How do they tie into the CRM and what kind of reports about profitability do they need? What does it mean for the finance team to integrate our accounting software into the piece of software? So it's not letting things run off and create their own life and someone centrally to just own the overall change plan and then make sure the right people are working on the right things. And again, that was my job in my previous agency, was to constantly think, okay, something's happening over here in client services. How does that impact sales and how they're selling the next contract, or how the delivery teams work with client services, or what the project managers need to know about the thing that we've decided in client services. So it just needs someone with the oversight. And quite often in agencies, people don't have a role like mine was. So who is that person doing that in your agency is what I would ask myself. Who's keeping things central?
Do you think there's like a specific size where you need to really have this person in the agency? Let's say when you are above 10 or 20 people?
I would say bigger. I mean, honestly, I've never seen an agency that has a role like that. And it's usually scattered across the board of directors. So the board of directors will own the change plan. But even when that's the case, things get lost because you haven't got the central person holding it all together. So you could say that should be the founder or the CEO. These people are not they're not the most organized, and they can't have their eyes and ears on the ground constantly to know how everything's impacting on each other. So it's a very strange role to have. And I've never really seen that kind of role in another agency. We were more than 100 people when I moved into that role. Before that, we tried to just manage it in the board of directors and senior leadership team. But the role was created because that didn't work. It's a role worth having because if you invest in it, it worked fantastically to deliver these strategic goals. And, the role was also established because we were eventually going to sell to a network. And we did. We sold to Havas. So this role essentially was also quite instrumental in making sure that we were performing to a level that someone like Havas would be interested in buying us. So it depends, if you have a plan to sell or to really grow exponentially, I think a role like that is worth having. If you don't have it, you could also bring in external advisors like accountability partners. You can work with strategy frameworks, OKRs, things like that to just keep things organized. But in my opinion, you need one person to hold everything together. If you don't have it, things will just stall.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, let's hope agencies will implement it sooner rather than later and becomes the norm. I think I've seen it often. They just hire consultants, even when it comes to automations. And it's not bad, but it's very difficult to have consultants know everything that's going on in your agency. It's impossible. They're not sitting in your agency. They have probably 5 more agencies that they're serving. They will never have the inside view.
Yes. And I mean, that is my job now. I'm a consultant for agencies and I fulfill this role for agencies. So I have to, we do the vision and the goal setting. I audit the agency according to the vision and goals. And I will tell them, well, actually, if this is your vision, here's what's holding you back. And here's how you can remove those barriers. And then I will stick around to make sure each of those changes, sits centrally in a plan that I help them keep moving. But also each of the individual changes are owned by one of the senior leaders. But I will be the objective person coming in regularly to say, this thing that we decided in client services, why haven't you worked with sales over here to work on that together? Because you're impacting on each other. So I'm like the reminder and the person spotting where things are not integrated. So I can fulfill that role to a point, but I'm absolutely like in agreement with you. I will never be in it as much as they are, but at least I can help them deliver the best plan possible that they wouldn't be able to deliver without the external input.
When it comes to delivering the plan, I've seen that you mentioned that you have an embedded ways of operating, so you don't do quick fixes. Is there like something that works really well across different agency sizes, like from 50 to 150 people?
In terms of change management and delivering operational changes, I don't think it matters necessarily how big you are. I think the approach is the same, where you start with your why, you define where you want to be, you bring in the right people affected by that change really early on so that your whole communication and your plan doesn't become top down. And you set some really clear KPIs and goals and projects for each department that are relevant for each department. And then someone in the middle holding it all together and making sure we report on it, we hold each other to account, things like that. So I think it doesn't really matter if you're 10 people or 100 people. There's a bit of a rhythm and a way of doing it. And change management best practice is always in the first, like in phase 1, take your time, like don't rush it. Don't jump into some kind of initiative that you haven't clearly defined, you haven't got buy-in for, you haven't got business as usual protected, you haven't got the right people on board, people aren't excited about it. So just take your time communicating properly and defining what's needed, regardless of your size, I would say.
Let's talk a little bit about AI. We mentioned it earlier, but do you see any specific AI changing operations inside agencies that would make sense to implement right now? And not just, okay, let's just do something AI, but something that actually makes an impact.
I mean, it's hard to generalize because what you do with AI will be different for different agencies. So what I've seen kind of across all of my clients and the agency world is there's an obvious trend with AI and automation that certain skills will become more important in your agency. So things like client services, relationship building, business acumen, curiosity, empathy, communication skills, those strategic thinking, those are all things that are super important. And actually, they have been important for the last decade and actually make you into a strategic partner agency. But they've been neglected because you can default to, oh, we're good at delivery. People like us because we do good work. Now that AI is kicking in, those agencies that haven't got those skills are panicking. And they are also the agencies that are not jumping on AI as much as the strategic partner agencies. So agencies that have great skill sets already in-house to do with client relationships and strategic thinking and, the kind of human skills, they are embracing AI a lot more than what I would call supplier agencies that just deliver work to clients and they're not very good at relationships and strategy and partnership and business partnership. So what you do with AI depends on where you are on that scale, I think. Because if you're already very good at client retention and you are a strategic partner and that's why clients come to you, then you will love what AI can do for you because it will speed up processes, it will automate things, it will save you time being closer to clients. You can be closer to clients instead of faffing with tasks that should take you an hour, but they take you 2 days. If you work in an agency that's very much delivery, channel work, digital optimization, delivering design, development, but you are not very good at being a trusted advisor and strategic partner to your clients, you will be scared of AI and you might not look into it properly. So first of all, look at where you are on the scale of, well, are we scared or are we embracing AI and why? And then I think I mentioned this earlier, maybe bring an external agency AI expert in to help you identify what the possibilities are with AI. In some agencies, it might just be automations and time savings and shortcuts and God knows what, but in others, it could be absolutely game changing, especially in design agencies. Also internally for operations directors, how you can get data, how you can make data real time and more forward looking and things like that. So I think get an expert to open your eyes to the possibilities. And if you are more on the supplier agency side, where you're not being looked at as a trusted advisor by clients, you need to make the shift in line with AI. So if we're now automating loads of stuff and we can be much quicker in our delivery, what is keeping our clients with us? Like, what's our USP if a lot of stuff can be automated? So if we're not very good at strategy and reporting and telling our clients where they should invest their money and why, we might not exist for much longer.
Yeah, listening to this, I'm wondering, do you think the supplier agencies are a little bit like the productized agencies that are just like, okay, people can buy something we deliver and then they bounce. So there's like no relationship building. They don't really upsell much. There's no afterthought. Like, how do we keep the client going for a long time?
Yes, and how do we prove ROI? So, if they buy X, Y, and Z packaged service from us, what's the ROI for them financially? You can still be a supplier agency and be successful with AI. So if you're selling packaged services and AI can help you deliver that 30% quicker than before, you don't want to reduce your price. So you need to move away from selling time and you need to move towards selling value. Because if you sell time, you now have to sell it for 30% less, and that's not the point. So you need to, I guess, think about the value of what you're doing, how you communicate that better, how you explain to clients why your automation and AI approach adds massive value to them financially. Because clients will challenge agencies more on, well, aren't you using AI for that? And does that not save you tons of hours? And can I not get it for cheaper now? So you need to be ready for those conversations and say, no, actually, yes, we're using AI across everything that we're doing so that we can spend more time like scoping what you need, how that's going to make you money, thinking about your long-term strategy, maybe helping you to promote what we're making, optimizing it. But it's the making of the thing, whether that's a design, a website, a whatever it is. Yes, we can save time with it, but that doesn't mean the client is spending less money on it. They will just get more value from it in other ways, and you need to figure out what that value is.
Yeah, and I think also communicating the value, because I see it often with SEO agencies. They try to get clients with SEO, but if nobody knows what SEO is, you should maybe communicate them, okay, people can now find you easier on Google. It will show up in local results. On top of just using AI to improve your delivery, you can also communicate better what you get clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And communicating ROI to me is one of the biggest issues I'm seeing in the agency world, because some agencies are very good at using the advanced data that's available and the advanced analytics and reporting tools to make like financial forecasts to say, if you invest X, you will get Y. And other agencies, again, it's the supplier agencies that are not advanced in their data and reporting use. They don't know how to sell because they can't prove ROI. And in the market, in the economy as it is right now, people don't buy, if they can't see the ROI. So you're right. The communication and the proof and evidence and data that you're using to prove the ROI in the sales process is absolutely key for me now that the economy is what it is.
Let's get a little bit tactical. And my last question, when agency boards resist any form of operational changes during busy periods, do you give them some specific advice when the timing might be really good to like implement some major strategic implementation?
Yeah, that needs careful planning, I would say. I think it depends who is impacted mostly by it. So if you're making a change to, or let's say you're targeting your client services teams that in the next 12 months, they have to increase upsells to existing clients by 10%. If that's the case, but you know that those teams are already busy and they're doing all sorts of things, they're doing firefighting, they're stepping in, doing project management, they're doing all sorts of things just to keep things moving, then we need to figure out, well, how do we now add this 10% target into a very busy day for a client services person? So again, it comes back to let's bring them all in a room and say, look, financially, and for us to survive and to flourish as an agency, we need to grow existing clients because we can't rely on new businesses much anymore. So tell me what is keeping you from doing that? Because it is part of a client services role to sell. So if they're not selling, why is that? And usually it's because there are too many barriers, because they're probably doing a lot of project management, firefighting, issue resolution, hand-holding, client issues, whatever else. So we need to remove those barriers. We need to make sure that this target is not becoming a problem in business as usual. And we need to help them to remove some of the busyness, to remove the tasks that they shouldn't be doing because they're client services people. They're not firefighters and project managers. So why are they doing all of that? They need to focus on selling. So if they can't do that right now, we need to help them to remove the barriers first and foremost. So I think in each scenario, we need to figure out what could possibly be in the way of achieving the change. And that we can only figure that out if we bring those people in a room and talk to them, get them bought into it in the first place, get them excited about it, and then slow and steady. Like if the goal is 10% more upsell in client services, maybe start with pick one client per client services person, test it, get feedback, review it, rather than making some kind of all singing, all dancing change to something that can't be done because there are too many barriers in place. Like slow and steady your way into the end goal rather than bang, here we go, 10%, go. We don't care if you can do it or not. That's your role. Just do it. It's just not going to work.
At least with design or website development, you have the A/B testing that's really helpful. But for agencies, it's a little bit more like just test it on a small scale and see if it works and then roll it out instead of just implementing it on a full scale.
It's exactly that same thing. It's like if you could compare it to agile, a lot of dev or technical people work in agile where, I mean, this is all very technical. They don't do the waterfall principle or the, kind of change delivery principle where you only deliver the change when it's fully done. And until that point, you're not even releasing anything. With agile, the starting point has a positive outcome already. So it's a test, it's an experiment, it's a learning opportunity. And then you take it from there. And each agile phase is that kind of review cycle of, are we seeing benefits even on a small scale? If so, how can we build on it? And that's the same with change management. So agile change management is the same principle of let's not just throw out some kind of massive change that will just stall. And it will change over time. Like we can't spend a year trying to make a change because in that year, everything's going to change again. So again, if we're making a small change to how we deliver client work, test it, do it on a couple of clients, get some people to volunteer to try it, review it, do it again until you've got a proven concept of, yeah, this is what we should be doing. And then you make the change because you've got buy-in, you've got a proven case, you've got like value from it already. But agencies aren't like that. They like to just go, yeah, we need to do it. We need to do it tomorrow.
Where do you think this mindset comes from with agencies? Is there some old school mentality or is it just like the, oh my God, we have to scale mentality?
I think it comes from a good place because agencies are kind of in their nature very fast moving and they have to keep up with so many technological advances. client demands, changing economy. Agencies are really one of the business, I would say, types that are most affected by fast change. So in its nature, I think it's a good thing that we want to be fast and we want to be changing all the time. But there's a way to do it that isn't negative for teams, is positive in getting buy-in from people and creating excitement. So yes, we need to always move quickly and we want to change quickly, but let's do it properly. And I think that's always my message is, I'm never going to advise against change. It's the opposite. But let's just do it properly. And if you think it can be done in a month, you can't. So I think I sometimes have to bring my clients back to reality of, if you're telling me you're super busy right now and there's problems all over, and now you want to make this massive change in the middle of what people are calling chaos, I'm telling you it's not going to happen. So I think it's just a bit of learning around like agile change management and how you best deliver things.
Before we wrap up, I want to ask you the question I ask all our guests. What's the one underrated system, tool, or process that you believe is the hidden engine of growth for agencies today?
I don't know if it's like a system or a tool. I would say hidden engine for me is data and people. So data in the sense of, I'd probably say the most successful agencies, they have data to make decisions based on insights rather than instinct. So they have maybe a tool, even if it's all in Excel, which it shouldn't be, but even if it is, if you can see how profitable your clients are, so you can see where you're over-servicing, you can see when people are not fully utilized and they're over-servicing, when you can see whether your headcount is right for the revenue you're bringing in. So do you have the right people to deliver the revenue that you're bringing in? If you have transparency on real-time data and an ability to forecast, you will be able to deliver change much more effectively because the data is telling a story of what needs to change. So you're not making these required changes up. It's based on data and it's based on data intelligence. And the second hidden engine, if you want, for me, is always going to be people. So recruiting the right people and not recruiting for what you need right now, but what you need for the future. So really recruiting based on the skill set that we've talked about earlier: innovation, proactivity, curiosity, automation. Yes, they have to be good at SEO, PPC, or whatever, but you don't want lots of people sitting in SEO and PPC and just doing PPC and SEO. You want them to think bigger about how can we do PPC and SEO better, quicker, with better ROI, better data. So yeah, hidden engine, data, good data, great people that bring you forward.
Freya, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you and listening to your expertise. Where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about Be Reyt?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, if you want to connect, find me on LinkedIn. That's usually where I'm most active, or message me on my website. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you for sharing these insights. Remember, great tools are just the start. The magic happens when you strategically implement them into your agency's workflow. This is Dejan Isak. See you in the engine room.